Kian, you're muted.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for coming in today and welcome to your second session on Culinary Responsibility by Professor Peter Klosse. Needless to say, Professor's reputation precedes him, but then for the audience out there, media viewing live, I would like to reintroduce you to Professor Peter Klosse, who is the owner of the five-star hotel and restaurant, the Echoput, near Apeldoorn in the Netherlands, in the Royal Forest. He, as an academic, has developed a new flavor theory which evolved in a Ph.D. on flavor classification. In this new paradigm, the flavor is considered to be a product quality which can be assessed objectively. His flavor classification model is based on the mouthfeel. He is also a former professor of gastronomy at the Hotel Management School, Maastricht. With his Academy for Gastronomy, he trains sommeliers and master chefs. He is also the founder of T.A.S.T.E, the Academy for Scientific Taste Evaluation. The mission of this independent foundation is to promote the consumption of real, natural, sustainable foods by conducting and inspiring sensory research, developing and spreading knowledge. Without further ado, Professor, the platform is all yours, and thank you for coming in.
Thank you, Gian, and welcome everybody to this second session. I really hope that you have prepared a lot of stuff, interesting stuff to relate to with each other, because of course I already had the opportunity to introduce the theory and the thoughts that I have on changing the food system in my first lecture. Maybe just to freshen up, I can share this screen with you, because that's what it amounted to: culinary responsibility. And basically, I think there are, of course, everything has to do with our planet and us. So planet and people are, of course, central. We do things with the planet, we consume the planet, we do all kinds of, we benefit from the planet, and of course, we cannot live without the planet. It's a big mistake to think that the planet needs us, but it's the other way around. We need the planet. And therefore, it's very important to, I believe, to really consider the planet as our mother. So we need to be very careful with that. And sustainability, health or vitality, circularity and things are, of course, very important concepts also for the planet. Then, as people that are in between our businesses, and if you look at it from the culinary side, of course, these are businesses that have to do with delicious food in restaurants or in shops or wherever. Deliciousness is a crucial concept. Of course, for a business to thrive and to stay alive, it needs to be profitable. But I would like to add to that the good businesses are also the ones that show an example, that show how it can be done, that are inspiring. And of course, we as a people, from a food perspective, we love foods that are convenient, affordable, and tasty. And if we can say one thing from what we have seen in the last 20 or 30 years, is that there are many foods that are convenient, affordable, and tasty, but they are not very good for us or not very good for the planet. And that's where culinary responsibility steps in. We make our food choices. We, I believe, need to make different choices. It's important that we make different choices. And therefore, convenient, affordable, and tasty should be applied to the foods that we really want or need. So I believe that the culinary perspective, the culinary mission, is the one where CAT, C-A-T, convenience, affordability, and taste are related to the foods that we should be eating or that we want to move the world to eat to. So that's, I believe, the perspective that is very much undervalued. We have academics that talk about the food system, then often they talk about well, the methane or the greenhouse gas emissions, and they talk about all kinds of things that have to do with food, but they don't address food itself. And we've seen that again at the COP26 conference. 2 weeks of talks on climate change, 2 weeks of mission to really get things better, get things on the road. But the word food has not been mentioned. So it's very strange that we, well, maybe consider food to be the elephant in the room. We'd rather not talk about it. But if you also know that 35% at least of greenhouse gas emissions are related to the food system, then food should really be on the agenda. And then the culinary perspective, I believe, is what has been missing. Of course, this is very big and very important and much about the world, but I also always like to say that every decision is a vote. And if you start eating differently, make different decisions, then ultimately the food system will change. And therefore, I believe it's very important that we start small. Don't talk too much about big. Don't expect the WHO or the United Nations or the FAO or whoever, that the big governmental organizations are going to take the lead, because it's us. The systems are there because of us. So if we change, the system will change. Some people say that this is rather naive to think that, but I truly believe it. But I also believe that, of course, governments and governmental organizations can really be very supportive in the change. So having said that, we left the last lecture with a question. And the question was, what do you know, or how can you, or do you have examples of making this change happen? So I really hope that we are now hearing, of course, this is also the last week of the bootcamp. So you've heard, besides me, many other people that have ideas. So I really wonder, what have you learned? What can you do? What makes you a climate changer? What makes you to act differently? So I give the floor to anyone who wants to say something. And then I hope we'll have a very good discussion on what can really be done about transformation of the food system.
Go for it, Zoe.
Oh, sorry, Aldo. I'll just say my bit really quickly, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay, so I actually came to this program through something called Chef's Manifesto, which I think we all know of now that we've done the climate supper. And, I think personally, it was a really kind of interesting journey for me to get to this point, because, I started cooking in restaurants. I'm a chef, but, I'm still relatively young, and I, was observing all of this, like the way we've been working with produce and things like that in fine dining restaurants. And while it's really exemplary in some places, it's not so much in others. And just the way, people are treated, produce is treated, and, the way the whole system works, sometimes it's a little conflicted, or I felt conflicted about it at least. So I guess recently I was connected to Chef's Manifesto through an old lecturer actually from culinary school, and very quickly started developing ties in the Chef's Manifesto community. And that's been really inspiring in the sense that it's given me the sense that I am not, alone in my struggles in thinking about this issue, and and growing through it. So it's been really wonderful to be connected to Future Food even, and to all our incredible classmates and speakers through Chef's Manifesto through this bootcamp. So yeah, that's my little bit.
Thank you very much. Zoe, can you also mention me a couple of examples of real initiatives that inspired you?
Yeah, so with Chef's Manifesto, I guess I was writing some pieces about kind of food in Malaysia and kind of in relation to our culture, but also our producers. So there's been this incredible kind of cooperative farming company that is called Langit Collective. And they work with a lot of producers in East Malaysia. So they work directly with farmers to improve traceability of food and also to just, bring more light to the really important work that they're doing there. I've also been, well, this is not so Chef's Manifesto related, but I've talked about it through Chef's Manifesto, started like a food aid program with a charity in Malaysia called Food Aid Foundation that, was paying restaurants to provide really wholesome, healthy meals to underserved communities. So that's been another little part of my ecosystem. Yeah, I hope those are good examples.
Okay. How about in the workplace itself, in restaurants? Because doing good is, of course, important, but making it commercial is also interesting. A few examples of that.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm actually attached to a restaurant in San Francisco, which is a little bit far away right now. I'm based in Kuala Lumpur at the moment, but we are working on developing a fast casual brand, and we are kind of looking at bringing the concept of whole animal butchery at a more accessible, affordable price point to a larger audience. So as we're developing that brand, we're thinking about the way that we're utilizing poultry, or even when it comes to vegetables, and looking into things like packaging and seeing how we can bring that same mindset to the rest of the whole brand.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Who wants to be next?
Yes, Aldo, please go for it.
Hello, thank you. Sorry, that was great, amazing. I feel tough right now after you. I don't know what to say, but I just want to mention that once I had this wish to cook a healthier meal, and I was very stubborn to not use certain very processed products and certain things. That happened around 15 years ago, and one thing led to another, and I started this journey that took me to fine dining and awesome restaurants, where I started to know the concept of farm to the table. I worked in a restaurant that had an awesome farm, and from there we cooked the menus, the daily menu, and then finally I ended in a hospital, holistic alternative hospital. It was very tough, but basically what I want to say is that it's very difficult, and it's been a conflict for me to how I actually would make a difference, because, for example, in the hospital, there were many needs for people of different foods that provided something in their process of acquiring a better health that wasn't in season, for example, or that wasn't local, or something like that. So that I don't know. I get confused on how exactly should I apport my part. Among other things. It's a long story, but that's the short one. What do you think?
When I talk in groups about this, I often hear that people find problems in changing, and I try to define the main obstacles. What would you believe are the main obstacles in the change. It's a bit strange that everybody seems to agree, or at least the smarter ones seem to agree that change is necessary. But then as change needs to be done, then people are a little bit hesitant on changing. So I wonder, what are obstacles? What would help people to make change more easy, to that they will really do it? You have an idea on that?
I do. One thing is this new kind of new tendency, new concept called mindfulness is ringing our bell. People are formed in a certain way, and they're used to, for example, eating things that are more delicious than healthy. You know, they tend to eat greasy, comfort, delicious food, not healthy, circular, sustainable. So they're not willing to do a certain change or to try a plant-based meal, for example. So that would be, I think, the main issue for me.
But then if you say it like this, then it sounds like delicious and healthy are opposites. Can they not be the same? Can healthy and delicious not go together?
No, I have proven that healthy and delicious could be and is, and I did it for the last 5 years in a hospital. That's super difficult, especially for patients that ate, you know, crazy stuff. That how do you make it delicious and appealing? So it was a challenge. I know it's possible. It's just the mind and the form of people that are really into, you know, just, I don't know how you call it, but that's not the issue. Not delicious, healthy. It's more of what their thoughts are, and they're not mindful about it.
Well, okay. I'm glad to hear that, because for me as well, it cannot never be an issue. Delicious and healthy could easily go together. The obstacle and the problem I think many of us face is that the common belief is that healthy and delicious are at odds. So, but the normal thing is, like you said in what you said before, that everything that's delicious is considered to be unhealthy, which is very funny and a very big problem, because it shouldn't be like that, of course. I believe that anyone who is a good cook doesn't have any problems in creating a delicious dish, which is also very healthy. So maybe we should redefine our concept of healthy, and also redesign dishes in a better way, so that the, let's say, better dishes for the planet are also very delicious ones. So maybe we need to re-educate chefs and rethink what deliciousness is.
If I may add something there, sorry.
Excuse me?
Yeah, I would like to add something around the topic, because actually I do agree with the fact that the mainstream idea that delicious and healthy are opposites. That's the mainstream, and probably like an unfortunate thing that it's outside there, right? So I do think that there's also some ingredients adding to that kind of things. For example, apart from the fact about affordability, I would also say accessibility, or the access to things. So if you go to regular shops, you usually see the industrialized food, frozen things that are basically taking all the stock and all the space that's suitable for people to go and buy. And certainly marketing has, it does have an influence on that, because, you know, like the shelves do have a price, like the best products, the most sold ones are the ones to be shown first. And usually those are the ones that are driven by marketing, rather than it's quality rather than if it's convenient, if it's delicious or not. What they do is they do go for the profitable part, and I think the idea of this is trying to, and probably if we go to local shops, that's way less normal. If you go to local shops, these kind of things are less normal. So I think that's an ingredient that could counter that thought of delicious goes opposite to healthy. So going to local shops and probably promoting local shops would be a strategy for developing that.
Okay, that's a good point. How about starting to maybe get into at the table with big retail and talk about their business model, because their business model now is, of course, based on what the industry wants. But of course, they could also make money on fresh. They could also make money on the real foods. So I believe that in transformation, big retail could really be a partner for many reasons. They have a big power. They reach out to customers. They can often have channels where they help people also and educate people in cooking. So if we could convince big retail to become a partner in change, then their business model is not jeopardized. And I believe if you start talking about big industry and the food industry, then they have a much bigger problem in changing because their business model is jeopardized. But the big retail could be a huge partner in change if they really commit to helping the customer, helping the people of the planet to eat better. How about that?
Well, I think surely they're keen to have the conversation, like, for example, I remember in the UK, like Tesco and some other retail stores are trying to have environmental initiatives. I remember it was, if I'm not wrong, it was Iceland, which was saying they were not going to buy any products from the palm oil, which is not sustainable. So they do try to have somehow the environmental part ongoing, but still, I think what you're saying is a challenging part, which is saying, okay, let's give it a try to the healthy part or the people part, which is also making stuff affordable and tasty, even though they're transitioning. And I do believe, I'm optimist in this perspective. They're changing, although not at the rate that we are expecting to. So yeah, I at the same time, I think the challenge is as consumers trying to bring that conversation on the table, because okay, we do need like the vast majority of consumers to pull the word out, make them know that we are considering having tasty, affordable, and convenient food, right? Which is, I think, the next step on our activism. Let's call it that way, which shouldn't be, right? Because it's you know what I mean. It's like the initiative.
And how would you get consumers to go buy at the smaller shops? Because mostly they will say it's less convenient. I need to go to different shops because these big retail has everything. So it's not one-stop shopping, but several stop shopping. And then the prices are likely to be higher. So how do you get consumers to do that anyway?
Well, that is true, and I've thought about that before as well. I'd say, from what I've seen, the idea is also making the local stores report their impact, right? If you go and you go buy fruit and you tell the final consumer you are buying from local fields, you are buying from local farmers, you are buying and you are helping X amount of families or something, that might change the discourse, right? Because certainly when you go to the big stores Walmart or any other one, like in the retail stores. Like impact is diffused across the different products. So you can have good things and some others are not, but certainly they will not push forward to that. So I think the advantage that the local stores could have is just bringing the message out of how are they contributing to the local environment. That's my 2 cents there.
And how are you going to do that in your personal life?
Actually, I'm at the moment I'm working on helping companies how to report ESG factors. So the idea is to understand first before reporting is like understanding the real impact, right? Because we don't want to go into greenwashing.
No.
So the idea is, okay, let's see what are your current impacts and let's try to mitigate or reduce or focus on the strategy and then bring them out to the consumers, which is, I mean, it sounds easy, but certainly it takes a lot of time and it's challenging as well. But I think that's the idea as a person, just extend my hand to local consumers. That's my intention further on.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you. Somebody
Can I
else?
jump in? Yes. I have an example as well because I work in Mexico with beekeepers and honey. A designer, and I mean, that was my entry ticket to the world of food, and I've been discovering so many things. And so the work that I'm doing in Mexico started just like super naive in a way. I just wanted to connect beekeepers with end consumers to protect the environment where bees were. That was my first attempt, and with that I discovered so many things around taste and how different around how many flowers represent many different tasting flavors in honey. And that's something that I've been working on for the past 6 years. And now I mean, and that's what I wrote on the chat, that on education and storytelling. It's a good way to link it, because usually, at least in Mexico, how we perceive honey, it's just like something sweet that you will have when you're sick, and that's it. And I think the thing that I'm struggling at the moment is trying to connect with chefs to use it as an ingredient and inspire different actions, so that this honey can stay in the country instead of being exported at a very low rate. So I mean, yeah, I'll stop now.
And did you already have some success in doing that?
Yes, I would say yes. We do a lot of honey tastings, and I've seen the change in perspective of people. Like they were like, I didn't know that you can use honey on this I don't know, for a savory ingredient or and I think that's something that has been very inspiring. It's while running honey tastings, it's seeing how people are so open and willing to be surprised by what you're providing.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think that's a very nice example for many reasons. Of course, we all know that bees are in problem and that our agricultural systems, are rather detrimental to all insects and all microorganisms. But honey is, of course, one of the most intriguing products, and that the taste of honey is could be a very seductive way of doing two things at the same time. First, fall in love with honey and the different aspects of it. But at the same time, if you want to have honey, then you need bees, and if you want to have bees, then you need to have a good agricultural system to give bees a good life. So it sounds like a two-edged sword here, which I like. If you can get honey tastings more popular, that would be, I believe, a very interesting way to do many things at the same time. Explain the life of bees, explain also that there's not one type of bee, but many types of bees, and many types of bees have different plants, and these different plants have different honeys, and that these are all different tastes, and they have different seasons as well. So so it could be a very intriguing way to, because everybody loves honey as far as I know. So it could be a very intriguing way to communicate about the biodiversity in nature and the beauty of taste with all these different products. I really like that idea. We should make it more, because bees are necessary all over the world, so not only in Mexico. And what you describe as honey is just some kind of a gooey sweet stuff. With many things unknown. I believe that would certainly be in Europe the same thing. I don't know, Gian, would it be in India as well?
Somewhat similar, that's true.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine that in the United States it would be different. So so it could be a very intriguing way to make that, to try to make it some kind of a global project.
Yeah.
We should talk about that, Lauren or somebody, or maybe I could do it. But it would be interesting to see what you have there, and to talk about, think about how it can be magnified, because it could be really interesting, an interesting thing to do. And everybody can do it. You always find somebody who will starts running a project in their own region. So I like the idea.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Actually,
yeah. So I'm a chef based in South Africa. My name is Mohari Itswe. And I'm part of the Chef's Manifesto with Zoe and Aldo. I joined the Chef's Manifesto years ago, around 2018. And for me, it was, I needed as a chef, I understood what my role was in the food system. And I wanted to make a change. I just didn't want to be just a chef. I wanted to learn, and I also wanted to teach around a healthy food system, because as part of as a chef in South Africa, I was a chef, but I was also a food editor for a magazine and a food writer. So part of what I was doing was literally exposing South Africans to healthy food.
her phone number.
So part of what I was doing was I felt that because I had a big platform, I needed to be responsible about it. So I started pushing a healthy narrative around South Africans, because South Africans love a lot of meat in their dishes. But culturally we are vegetarians, and we eat a lot of vegetables. But over the years, we've been cut off from the source, and a lot of people don't even know that you can grow your own vegetables successfully and feed yourself. So when I joined the Chef's Manifesto, I learned about my role as a chef, and what positivity and a positive change that I could bring as a voice and as an advocate for healthy food. So it became my mission to create a platform, or to even just open people up to indigenous ingredients that grow wild here in South Africa, but that are good for the planet and good for our health. So that became my mission, to actually remind people around our plant-based eating, but more importantly, the indigenous food that is free and around our country. A lot of people here suffer from food insecurity, but also obesity. So we've got both here in South Africa, and people are obese purely because they're not eating properly. It's not because, so there's malnutrition in terms of no nutrients, and then there's also malnutrition in terms of obesity. So it became my mission as part of the Chef's Manifesto to bring that knowledge and education. So last year during COVID, I came up with a book, the first plant-based South African book by a person of color, and it's this book here, and it's called Vegilicious. And basically, I took the food that I grew up eating, the food that my grandmothers, because I grew up in a family where my grandmother grew her own vegetables, and I learned a lot from her, and trying to bring back the growing of the vegetables. In the book, I cover how to start your own small vegetable, how to live consciously, how to reduce food waste at home, and how to grow your own indigenous garden that doesn't need watering, that's really drought resistant and all that. So it became my mission to be a food activist. So I'm a food activist now in South Africa, and I've brought consciousness around what people eat, bringing back the stuff that we grew up eating that's healthy, that's better for us. And I'm hoping that I was hoping with this course to actually expand my knowledge some more, so I can also teach whatever I learned here. I teach as part of what I do for the Chef's Manifesto. So I'm very, very excited, and I've just been so blown away with working with everybody here. I've learned so much about other things and other countries and how they're dealing with different things. So for me, as this for me has been a very a great opportunity.
Thank you. What I really like what you said is that many things, but a couple of them are, first, that there is so much knowledge out there that is not known anymore. So we need to uncover old traditions and old uses. So we've become a lot disconnected, and what I believe you made clear was to reestablish that connection through the things that you know from your grandmother, and then relearn people what these ancient practices were.
Yes.
So I think that's one ingredient that's important. Then the other one is, of course, the indigenous foods and the ones that you find and are out there for free, as you mentioned, and then turn them into delicious dishes. And that's what, of course, you as a chef could do, that they're not just indigenous. And if they're just out there and you don't know how to cook them or how to prepare them in such a way that it becomes a delicious dish, then of course people won't get interested. But if it's for free and delicious, then of course you have a whole different story to tell. And I believe you tell that story rather well with your book, etc. So it's I think it's a good illustration of what I also believe is that the role of chefs. If we hold as culinarians, we hold the key of delicious. So we hold also very important power to people to reconvince people that real foods are the delicious ones. If we relearn people how to do that, then they have happier lives. And that I believe, as you said, around the healthiness and malnutrition and lacking nutrients, the big thing of our health problem is eating empty calories, is eating empty foods, is eating ultra-processed foods that have no quality whatsoever. So they're just calories, but they don't feed you. So we eat, but we don't feed ourselves anymore. And that gives us a whole bunch of problems. And going back to real foods with real fibers and all the minerals and vitamins and all the help agents that are in real foods, we feed ourselves again, and then we will find that we will also get better and increase our vitality. So the whole narrative around healthiness should also, I think, be inspired by eating real foods, because that really helps people and makes them more vital. Again, a role for chefs. So I'm glad to hear that you were inspired by Chef's Manifesto, but it also shows me how important such a community is. A community of chefs that help each other and strengthen each other is really important.
Yes, that's been my experience with the Chef's Manifesto. I've learned so much just being in that community. And for me, it just literally opened the door to so much. And I've grown so much as a person now. I understand how the food systems work. And I also understand that I do have a role to play. I'm not just a small person, but every small little person can make a difference. You know,
Right.
whatever small little difference that you make, if somebody can be inspired by you, you
Right.
can you're making a bigger difference, even if it's just one person. So
again, a very important remark. We're all people. We all make our choices, and all our small choices are making the big choice. So don't wait for the big one. Just make all these smaller ones yourselves, and everything ultimately will change. So glad for your contribution. Thank you. How about somebody else?
Professor, we have one comment from Rebetswe in the Zoom chat.
Yeah.
Rebetswe, would you like to talk about it, or would you like me to read it?
No, read it. Fine.
So she has a comment.
Or somebody, the ones that posed the question can, of course, ask the question.
Absolutely.
What was the question, Jan? Because then now we don't know the question, of course.
So she's talking about, so she's saying, not saying that we should eliminate big stores as part of the solution, but she feels if we promote and encourage households to produce what they can for themselves, they wouldn't be faced with high prices in store. Therefore, maybe perhaps not associating with healthy eating with a cost. She's talking about in South Africa, you know you'll get healthy food from, example, Woolworths. But even she thinks Woolworths is way too expensive.
Okay. Did I miss the question, or didn't you ask a question?
I think this was a follow-up to what Nicolas was talking about.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. True. Okay. Agreed.
Andreas, would you like to say something, if possible?
Yeah. Hello, Andy, also chef, also part of Chef's Manifesto, part of Chef's Alliance from Slow Foods, being members of the social gastronomy movement. So also trying to use food as a tool for social change in all different aspects. I'm also teaching at the culinary school with like becoming cooks in vocational training. So I see different fields and different problematics. So I don't know where to start. But just something came to my hands. Actually, was behind me in my office. There is so how can we reach like the citizens here in let's say in Zurich? So the city of Zurich gave a little guide out for all the different areas we have here in Zurich, where you can see there's like mapped. You can see it's mapped where you find like sustainable fashion stores, where you find community-run shops, where you find sharing economy, repair shops, secondhand stores, sustainable flower stores, like all the portfolio of circular future concepts. And it's given out by the city and was sent to each household in Zurich. And that just makes it like tangible for the citizens and visible, because a lot of, from my experience, a lot of people come to me and say, where can I find this or that, so that they don't have the access to the knowledge, or not yet. And I'm quite happy that Zurich made the move to kind of showcase all these existing systems to make it accessible to the people, and it's working well. So and you can see like which is organic, which is fair trade. So they're all the labels, and they run it under the label like reduce, recycle, repair, and rethink, which is genius. So me as a small restaurant, I can kind of put myself in a better spot, because people know, let's go to Babette's. He's using local food, he's celebrating biodiversity, social projects, etc., etc. So
Yeah.
And with my work, I try also to inspire other chefs, other restaurants, and create the kind of community and awareness around the topic. And for example, Chef's Manifesto is a great, very easy, understandable tool. And none of my friends which are running restaurants don't get it, you know. And they always find like one part where they can be part of the solution.
Mm-hmm.
Depends if it's, you know, celebrating community, protect the oceans, whatsoever. And like that, we create like a wind of change where we also animate and inspire big companies like Compass Group here in Zurich, which is running Google. So you also have like really impact with big companies. And
yeah,
what I always preach is they don't have to start with like changing the complete menu or the supply chain. Start with one product, like dairy products, or like celebrate a local vegetable, and from there it starts to roll.
Yeah.
And it's the power we have, and that's also how we kind of put a bit of pressure on the big retailers.
Yeah.
And big retailers are also kind of part of the game. So a lot of very smart startups like aquaponic farms, they need a certain size to be able to run a business. And for that, retailers are good partners, because the small shops don't have the amount which is needed to generate enough money to grow.
No, true.
So
do you know, Andrea, do you have to pay to get into that map of Zurich, or is that the community, the municipality of Zurich who pays it?
No, the taxpayer is paying it.
Oh, but that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Because that's what I said before is that I'm often looking at where does the change happen, and I think the smaller governments are the ones that are overlooked. Smaller governments have a lot of power, and they can reach out to their own citizens rather easily, and they can also do many things that would help citizens. So to integrate, apparently Zurich does it by itself. But to integrate smaller governments in helping the change happen is a very important, could be a very important step, because they, of course, evidently have the money. They also have an obligation for healthy citizens. They want to have a pleasant city and a good community and a thriving community with different shops, biodiversity. So the local communities and local municipalities could be an interesting partner also for all of you listening. Could be a very interesting partner for helping transformation. So I'm glad that you mentioned it, because you're quite right. If you are small, you're a startup, you need help from others. You need each other, but also the help of a municipality in this case could really be helpful in surviving. And if you survive, then you can get bigger. So that's it's a good point that you bring up.
Yeah, and Zurich is also part of the Millennium Food Pact, so they really have to start somewhere. And we consult also hospitals in change. So we started with like the 4 big hospitals just to measure their food waste, and just the process of measuring was an eye opener for them, because in the end, one big hospital here, they spare like 72,000 francs just in not wasting milk, just because they measured it. They realized, oh, the cups are too big. So easy. And in the end, it's money. And with money, you just hook them up.
Yeah, but you see, you say it's so easy, but the easy things are often the hardest to see. It's strange with easy things. They're easy once you see it, but somebody just has to see it, and somebody has to tell you, and then it's easy, and then you can start acting.
Breaking the ice and breaking old structures, that's the hard part.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Again, a good point. Who can bring something else to the table? Is there a question in the chat, Gian?
No, not at the moment, Professor. Zoe, I think you mentioned a comment. Would you like to elaborate on that? Earlier, you have posted.
My chicken and egg comment? Oh, well, that was in response to Andreas's question, I think, which was like the original question of how we get bigger retailers to change, I guess, when like capitalism is so set into the system of like, purchasing decisions for grocery stores and things like that. Yeah, so my comment was just like, it's kind of always been very hard for me to think about that because I'm like, oh, do you have to change what the consumer wants first, or do you, go to the retailers and try and instigate that change to make consumers change? And then I get into this whole thing of trying to think about that, but I guess it's not a black or white either or thing. It has to happen concurrently is kind of where I land. Yeah.
And from whatever angle it happens. So if we as a consumer make different choices, then the supermarkets learn quickly that they need to rethink what they have in the shops, and then of course the change will happen from that way as well. So it can come from either side. There is no good or bad, but also nobody to blame. There's often a question if you start discussing around this, then many people start asking the question, how did we get into this mess and who did it? But I always believe it's not important to talk about who did it. We need to talk about what has to be done, because we are here and we are facing what we face, and we need to act. And let's not waste time on the who did it question, because ultimately you will never ask, you never get an answer. And if you have the answer, then nothing will change. So you just know who did it. So let's focus on acting, and let's focus on what needs to be done. It's much better. It's much more helpful as well.
Blame doesn't inspire change. Yeah, thank you.
Professor, so as a closing question from our side to you, is there, for our audience and for people who are viewing through the social media channels, do you have any piece of advice when it comes to culinary responsibility?
Well, social media is, of course, a very interesting place to communicate, and I think everybody should do it. Just tell about your success stories, like South Africa did. No, not South Africa as a country, but the lady from South Africa. Just tell what you do, to inspire people, tell the narrative, show the example, and be open to the world for your belief, and what you can do to make that change happen. I don't know if I am easily.
No, thank you for that, Professor. But then if you had to add on as a piece of advice for the topic of culinary responsibility for your viewers who are viewing this session live on the social media platforms right now, would there be something for them that you would like to share?
I'm not sure if I understand your question, but maybe this slide helps. Gastronomy is much more than gastronomy. Often people believe, but people believe it is. People think gastronomy is about luxury dishes, and well, just the hedonic side of gastronomy is often, let's say, getting all the attention. But I believe there's also an essential side to gastronomy. I even believe you could distinguish non-essential gastronomy and essential gastronomy, where essential gastronomy is doing what we just talked about, taking culinary responsibility and understanding what your role as a culinarian or your role in gastronomy at large is to make change. Because I think gastronomy is the intermediate, the mediate between food, wherever it comes from the land, from the water, fish, whatever, and the table. We are in between. And the table is, of course, much more than a restaurant table. It's also the table in hospitals. It's a table at home. It's a table where people eat in general. And this relation of gastronomy, seeing gastronomy as the, let's say, the mediator between the origin of our foods and the table, is, I believe, what would really inspire also make for me, that's the next step in gastronomy. Make people understand the important role of gastronomy, how important gastronomy is in food systems transformation, but also in solving the challenges that we face. The challenges of 7 out of 10 deaths are lifestyle related, and within lifestyle related, mostly food related. So that's a huge challenge. The challenge of climate change, again, for a large part related to food choices. So food choices, and then within these food choices, gastronomy as the science of flavor and tasting, the science that knows a lot about food and a lot about pleasure, could really be a very interesting mediator for the future. It's also nice gastronomy. Every once in a while, when I'm active in the academics, just recently I had an interview for an academic, a public academic, like Scientific American. It's not Scientific American, but then a European version of it. And then I had problems getting my article published. So it was a journalist who took a lot of time in investing in understanding the gastronomy philosophy as a science. And then he wrote a very good article about it. And then he got to the main editor, and then the main editor said, this sounds like a culinary article. It's not really a science article. And then we got into some kind of a discussion, and the discussion was around, why should culinary or gastronomy not be a science article? Is it because we have fun? Is it because it's also about pleasure? And then ultimately that was a kind of a conclusion. Science should be dull and boring. As soon as gastronomy as a science is presented as a science, really knowing and really based on research and really based on solid science, both on the natural sciences side and the social sciences side, then suddenly it's about pleasure. It's suddenly about it's just about eating. But if you understand the importance of eating, then I really believe that gastronomy needs to be taken seriously. So that's something that in my personal life I face, and then I could get very, very frustrated about that. But then you could also be happy about that and say, okay, well, if you don't understand it, I still believe in what I do and still believe in the importance of gastronomy as a science. And I will go on inspiring other people, telling about this importance. And I heard today, this evening for me, many people that understand that it is the way to go. So I just hope that many of us will keep on going doing this. And wherever I can, I will help people in making this happen, because it's the way that will change. I'm very confident about it. It's much more practical and applicable to talk about real foods and the real tables, and make people understand how deliciousness works. That's the easiest way to promote change. I think, I believe, I hope.
Thank you so much, Professor, for that insightful conversation, because again, change is one step at a time, however small changes still change. So on that note, it also brings us to the end of our conversation for today. Professor, thank you for taking the time out to come in and educate us on your thoughts, your view, what you do, and also the conversation of food as a topic. So this also brings us to the end. Thank you, Professor. Thank you all for coming in. We shall see you soon, and see you soon, Professor.
Well, I hope so. It's
Thank
always nice to be around people that love food. So it was a great hour to be among you. Thank you.